It's February 12th, 2015. We're here at the Balboa Island Museum and Historical Society with Jack and Joan Northrup. We're working on the Over the Bridge Oral History Project. Our first question is, what is your earliest memory of the island?
Mine
Yes.
was when I went to grammar school here, 1936. And that was my first beginning. And I remember sailing boats down the street with my brother because of water.
We assumed there wasn't a big seawall then.
Right. Quite different. And what else do you remember? And it's in 1936. What was the community like at the time?
Well, it was very small, and it was, the houses mainly were little homes, many of them built high because of the water that would come in. And it was always a fun place to come. And as the years went on, I came back many times because I had relatives that lived here on the island. And then when I reached my teenage years, it was Val Week. And that's where we came to Val every year. Had a lot of fun. Until I moved down here.
What year was that you moved here permanently?
Well, I moved down here in 1989. We had a house here before that, but we used it as a rental. And then we sold our house in Harbor Heights where I lived and came down here. And then in 1990 was when Jack and I built our house.
Great. What would be your earliest memory of the island, Jack?
Well, I lived in Tustin, and we used to ride our bicycles down and kind of park them and camp up on the bluff up there where there were a few homes. Only one or two big homes that looked over, and all the rest was open agricultural area. And so we'd ride our bikes down, and I think we kind of stayed away from getting involved in Val Week, but we knew about it. We came down to kind of watch it. The other memory I have is I had a friend, a Marine friend, who lived in Illinois, but he was out here in the Marine Corps. And he and I went to the Balboa Rendezvous, which was a great big building over where the parking lot is now next to the pier, which of course burned down some years ago. But there was a big crowd of sailors and all kinds of servicemen because it was during the war. And the music was the great music we had in the early, in the 50s and 60s.
Big band.
Big band, yeah.
So you frequented the dance hall down here then? Is that
No,
something
it was over across on the other side.
Peninsula?
By the pier.
Off the pier. Is that something that you, one of your common pastimes was dancing and listening to the big band music?
Yes, it was, basically for dancing, although there were enough girls around to dance with, as I recall.
There weren't?
Well, I don't know, I don't remember dancing with any.
This is dear, isn't it?
Alice is back here?
She's
okay,
coming.
great.
So those were my earliest memories of the island. And then, of course, when we, well, just a brief thumbnail of how we got together, because Joan was married for 35 years to her first husband, and I was married for 4 years to my first wife. And my first wife died in August, and her husband was killed on the Pacific Coast Highway in the following January. And so we got together after that because we've been longtime friends as couples. And so that's how we got together and have this rather extended family with, let's see, we have 6 kids together, 11 grandchildren, and then I think it's 12 or 13 great-grandchildren. So that's kind of how we got acquainted with the island. Joan lived down here when we got together, and she lived in a house over on Garnet. And I used to visit her there. And then in, let's see, it was, during '88, it was a time we kind of got together, and I guess you'd call it our courtship. And then in '89, and we were engaged in December of '88, or '88. And in the spring of '89, we had been looking for some place to live on the island because Joan loved the island. I thought I preferred Lido Island, actually, and I wasn't very successful in convincing her of that. And as I look back on it, I'm really glad because Balboa Island is much more fun than Lido because it's a real community where you get to know the people, you get to know your neighbors.
Right, and you've known it for some time. From one of its earliest things to be known about Lake and just witnessing the changes that it's witnessed. When you came back over the summers and you saw just new groups of people visiting, what have you noticed is the most change for you? What have you witnessed the most notable change?
Well, of course, it's much more developed. There are mostly cottages back then. And of course now, all the cottages are being torn down and they're building much larger houses.
Which we did too.
Right, absolutely. The community can change.
So that's, the development has been.
When we first came down here, we were in with the starting of the decorating of the island, working with the beautification.
Okay.
And we did the first home tour.
Wow.
And Jack got involved in the bridge, redesigning the bridge and building that with the flower pots. And I did the flower pots a lot for quite a while. And then fluffing garlands and putting up garlands all across the bridge, and then he had to keep the lights going.
In those days, it was all volunteer.
All
Right,
volunteers,
right.
yes. We
Yeah,
set up.
nowadays, I think it's the city who takes care of the bridge and
Yeah. It's
all
a-
that sort of thing.
How have holiday celebrations changed over time with the boat parade and 4th of July? And those are times where the whole community comes here to celebrate. What have you seen?
Very busy.
Okay.
The traffic is horrendous. We have a party every year, and I know it took my daughter it took her over an hour to get off the island, because of the traffic.
Right.
They really need to have a policeman up here that directs it so that they give everybody a fair turn.
Sure.
But it's a very crowded time, but it's of course festive. We live on the bayfront, so for Halloween, how many did we have last year? Do you remember?
Well, we buy 700 or 800 pieces of candy and we always run out.
Yeah, so there's.
And so we probably have 1,000 kids that come by on Halloween.
Fortunately, we have a son-in-law that likes to hand out the candy.
Good teamwork.
Yeah, so he comes down and then we have dinner after once we have handed out all the candy, then it's like, okay, that's it. And
Would you have a special holiday memory that relates to the island?
Special, well,
Special memories?
back in my childhood days, when we would come down here for 4th of July, was a big one. And what I remember going in the morning after they shot off all the fireworks, I would go around on the beach and pick up all the little houses that they had left on the beach and little things like that. That was fun.
In those days, you could have fireworks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. But that was a big holiday down here, 4th of July. But now we try to get out of here because our dog doesn't like it.
Oh, yeah.
Maggie doesn't like it. She goes in her closet and hides.
Do you have, with your neighbors, do you celebrate holidays with them as well? I see a common theme of block parties and
Yes.
holidays being spent together. Is
They
that
have
something?
An end
you
of
do?
the summer party right outside our door every year, when all the people go home and we get the island back.
Right.
Well, you know, many people complain about the traffic on the island, and that's because many of them just come down at those particular times. But mostly, of course, especially during the winter, it's never really a problem. And even in the summertime, most of the time it moves fairly well. And it's not nearly as much of a problem as going out to the peninsula, which is much longer drive and so on. So it's really relatively easy to get to for a beach location.
Would you share why the island holds such a special place in each of your hearts? Sounds like you have a history of having visited from just different eras, so how did it become special in your heart?
Well, for me, it's been in the family for a long time, and it was always a place to come. And my dad used to love to come down here and bring us. And that transformed into me. I just continued it, to come down, rent a place, and I had relatives here that we could sometimes share their house. And it was great fun, you know, always good memories. So.
Well, I think the thing that gave me the best understanding of the island and its uniqueness is my involvement, and I was involved in the BIA. I was on the board and secretary, and not secretary, treasurer. And so as you get involved in the community activities, you learn to and get to know the people. It becomes a special place because you get a feeling of how much community there is and how volunteers really make the place work. As you know, the museum, which I've been involved with for quite some time now, has been staffed mostly by volunteers. We have enough docents to keep it open 4 days a week. And so that takes 2 people for every day. And you only have to do it once a month. So as you can appreciate, there are quite a few volunteers involved in simply being here and supporting the museum. And every time Joan comes home from being docent, she has a story to tell about somebody who visited and had a nice visit with him. And they seem to come from all over. I mean, they're not just, we have local people, of course, too, but they come from different nearby cities, and some of them come from other places in the world. And so it's been a kind of a fun experience for her, I think, too.
Yesterday, the lady that came in was from Florida, and she did the same thing down in Florida. And she was looking around, and I said, well, do you have any ideas to help us? And she said, interview the old people on the island.
Wow.
Here we are.
Of all things, so you're like
Yeah.
participating in the
Yeah.
projects.
Yeah.
We don't qualify as old, we always consider ourselves
Never.
older.
It's always the heart. So, speaking of childhoods and youth. Do you have a favorite Balboa Island story that brings back memories of your childhood, or perhaps that inner child in you?
I have one of swimming across the bay. In those days, you could swim down by the pavilion. You would swim across. Well, there was a beach over there, so you would swim across and there was a beach there. And I would put probably a quarter in my bathing cap, so then I could take the ferry back.
Right.
So I only had to swim one way. But that was, something you did quite often, because you could swim over and there was a nice beach there. Now they've taken that beach all away, but,
Develop the area.
And I came down here even with, I have another picture of me and two other girlfriends that we were here in our new bathing suits for the summer. And that was fun to always get your new bathing suit and come down to the beach. That's all.
That's great. Would you have a unique childhood memory, or the inner child in you memory?
Well, I don't have any childhood memories of the island because I never came down here as a child. My father was a school teacher. He taught wood shop and mechanical drawing and that sort of thing. And back in the 30s, during the Depression, the school couldn't afford to hire him full-time at one school, so he worked all over the county in doing his job. And since he didn't get paid in the summertime, that was the condition of teachers at that point in time, he refinished school desks. I remember down in Newport Beach Elementary School, refinishing school desks, and what you had to do was to scrape off the old varnish and then sand it down with a sander, and it was a big job. And then he finally came by and refinished them with varnish or lacquer. But as I recall, we used to go up and down what they called the board. Well, it was a boardwalk in those days. It wasn't a paved boardwalk. It was a regular boardwalk. And there was a store down the way, and we'd go down to the store and get some candy or something else like kids do. Also, I remember there was a lot of dredging going on. And they had these huge piles. Well, they seemed huge at the time. They probably weren't really as big as they seemed at the time. But they went clear across from the bay onto the ocean. When they dredged the bay, they deposited the sand out in the ocean, and they had to put it in pipes across the peninsula and over into the ocean. So that's the kind of memory I have about the area. It wasn't the island specifically, but it was pretty close.
Right. What have you witnessed with the change over time with this community? What's, other than the development itself, maybe the residents, have you seen a lot of change with who's lived here? I know with the post-war era, you had some veterans who were stationed in the area, and it kind of transformed the area. Is there anything in particular you've noted with its residents?
Well, World War II certainly did transform the population.
I think there's now more people living year-round here.
Right.
Than back then. It was more of a vacation place. You'd come and rent a place for a week or 2 weeks and back and forth. Now, most people, there's a few rentals still, but I mean, there's mainly people that are
permanent.
here, live permanently. And that's how when you really get involved in things.
Right, you have that community to build from. That's great.
I worked for 6 years on trying to get the overhead utilities undergrounded.
Oh, yes.
And we finally went to the council meeting when we lost by 3 votes. And I had neighbors who said they were gonna vote for it, but they never got around to it, I guess. And, you know, those 3 neighbors that had voted.
Would have had all these wires underground. The little island has all the wires underground. It's a big project, it's an expensive project. But they're still working on it, and maybe, probably not in our lifetime, but they should have it
The
underground.
beautification project, certainly, for
Yeah,
cities.
Yes.
making some progress.
It's a, you know, when you drive down and look at down an alley, you see all the wires
Right.
hanging down. And it'll be nice if they do
Certainly.
it.
How did Balboa Island become a home to you? So you shared this journey of moving here together in 1990, but how did that be? You have that early memory, though. How would you say it became a home?
Well, when we bought our lot, on the bayfront, it had a cottage on it, and I have some pictures in that history of the lot. And lot history is kind of interesting. It goes back to the fact that in 1912 was when the lot was first sold. And then nothing happened for 10 or 12 years. And then subsequently, somebody built a house on it in 1926. And at that time, they were probably, at least the last guy was a real estate speculator. So none of them owned the house for very long. And it was purchased by Wilfred Jackson. And Wilfred Jackson, not at that time, but became the chief animator for Disney and produced such films as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Fantasia, and several others. And he moved from his permanent home, someplace I think in Pasadena, down here. I don't know what year exactly. So he was the one who owned the house that we lived in for most of those years. And so we're really only the second long-time occupants. We've been an occupant since we moved in 1991, February 1991, on Joan's birthday.
Good birthday present.
Absolutely. Speaking of Hollywood, would you have any celebrity stories of having encountered them here on the island?
Well, of course, we all know about the celebrities that were on the island. I don't recall that we knew any of them.
We went skiing with the wife of,
Well, that's right. Buddy Ebsen's wife was in a skiing group we went with one time. We went to Europe, went skiing. And so we knew her. We didn't really ever got anybody that had died by that time. Of course, we all love to see John Wayne when we go out on our boat.
Yes.
we waved.
Was he quite friendly?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
he
You
just
would
had-
sit out there and wave to people.
Ever have a personal encounter? Some have
No,
these
not-
cute
not I.
stories at times.
My cousin who lived down here, she was a bridge player, and he liked to play bridge. So he would invite her to go out with him, and then there was a group that would go out over to Catalina and just sail around slowly, and they'd play bridge and poker and different card games. But I know that bridge was one that he liked. But I never went with him. Didn't know it.
And I'm also interested in the sitcom Arrested Development that captures part of the television history of the island. Are you familiar with that by chance?
Are you?
It's a
VidCon?
it's a television sitcom called Arrested Development, and it shows the Balboa Bar, the chocolate dip banana, just kind of the development of that small business here, and it follows the family. So I'm interested in its residents' opinion of the show, since it captures some of the
Oh, yeah, we
history.
don't watch much television, so we haven't really
It's fairly
seen that.
modern. It's
Yeah.
been a recent phenomenon,
But
quite.
they have the banana.
Banana stand is what it's noted for in its connection to the island. So they actually brought out a miniature set not too long ago to show it. Yeah, it's a fun show. We're wondering what you feel when you drive over the bridge or walk over. There's some residents who share a certain kind of feeling, and so, and the project's entitled Over the Bridge. So what does that mean to
We
you?
always wonder, where are all these people going? It's a,
Coming or going.
but there's usually stream of cars coming onto the island, and we'll comment, well, the island's gonna sink because of this.
Especially in the summer.
Yes, in the summer.
I think we always, because we were involved in decorating the bridge and putting the flags up and all that sort of thing. I know every time I go across, and I think Joan does too, we look and see if
What
If
they've
they,
done.
why don't they have the flags up, the flowers up right now? The pots are
Empty.
empty. And so we can kind of look at it and make sure whether or not it's like we think it should be. But I think it's like a feeling that you have most places where you've lived for a long time, is the feeling of coming home.
It's neat that you have a direct connection with the bridge itself, with developing and just keeping it beautiful. And so it seems to be very symbolic for you as a couple that you have had strong ties to it. So
Yes.
and it really shapes the image of the island, certainly.
Yeah, at Christmas time, we always worked on a Christmas tree down by the fire station, or on the bridge, or around the island, making bows, or downtown. I've probably made thousands of bows. But that's what my love has always been, is decorating, so I like to go. We belong to the yacht club, and they have the
BYC.
Yes.
one up there, so that's nice. Have all the yacht clubs represented up there.
At one point in time, it was actually located on the island. Now, of course, it's just across in Corona del Mar. And so that's been really a part of the community too, because a lot of people who live on the island are members of the club,
Right.
as well from the surrounding community.
Absolutely. Would you have a favorite story about a business on Marine Avenue, even if it does not exist to this day?
Story
Story
about,
about business on the island.
One of the restaurants, one of the retail stores?
Well, we used to thoroughly enjoy our little restaurant that was down on Park Avenue there, and it was sold, and it's been closed and keeps, I don't know if they'll ever open up again. I really miss it. That was, you could take your dog and she could sit under the table, and, you know, it was so handy, because it's right on the
it was only a block
Park.
from us.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Do you recall the name by chance?
Park Avenue.
Park Avenue.
So then, so
Park
what's
Avenue.
the name
Yeah.
of the restaurant?
So we hope that somebody will take it and start it up again.
Certainly, and it's transformed just from when we started this project. New storefronts have changed,
Have changed.
Remodeling, and so it's exciting to see a transformation. So,
Yes.
Well, Joan also likes the jewelry on here.
Oh, yes.
jewelry, yes.
it's always a good idea.
You might have noticed she loves
I have
jewelry,
diamonds.
especially diamonds.
Yeah, they're the girls' best friends. So,
Yeah.
I really agree.
Well, I think the business on the island is part of what gives it its charm. And of course, we have a lot of turnover. We were always sorry to see the original coffee place leave, and Now, I don't know, it's a juice store or something else. And the place next door, the Cinnamon Bun, has gone through several transformations. And now Hershey's Market does a kind of an interesting job. They sell the least expensive coffee on there.
Yeah.
And they really have quite a nice place for having, a cup of coffee or a little lunch, I guess. We've never been there for lunch.
Do you know Ruth by chance? Ruth Hershey? Did you know her?
I had met her,
Oh,
yes.
excellent.
She was a friend of one of my girlfriends from
Okay.
high school. And so we went over to her house one time and she was selling off her baby furniture because her kids were all grown. So I bought a high chair for one of my kids and something else, I don't remember now what it was, but she, my friend came to the service here when
Right.
they had that service for her.
But it's such an establishment here on the island, the Hershey's Market. It's really kept, especially the long-term residents, it's just the basic needs are met by having that. And I know the hardware store was integral for many years too. When you live here, you need those kind of things. And it's, the business is really shaped
And the
your
benefit-
daily life.
Two banana places,
Yes.
both claim to be the originals. I've been
Right.
there for a long, long time.
That's
It
right.
doesn't seem like they're ever gonna change.
That's a very important part of the diet too. To have access to
Yeah.
banana bars. So it's nice to
There
have.
used to be a good little drugstore, what do you call it, a party store
Uh-huh.
down here on, and I just love that, where you could get cards and you could get napkins and you could get,
Right.
all that kind of thing that you need. And they closed and now I don't know even what it is anymore, but we missed something on the island like that. I wish there was another one. 'Cause I'm always looking for good cards. And
Right.
I have a lot of kids to send cards to.
Well, fortunately, the shopping center over there isn't too far away.
It really is, right.
And that does provide a lot of things that used to be really sold on the island.
Mhm. So you
And it's also
expanded.
accessible by golf cart, which makes it nice.
That's great. Do you have any other thoughts you'd like, or stories you'd like to share today to add to the collection?
Well, I think we've pretty much covered a lot of the things that we can remember. I'm sure there's a lot of things that happened that we don't remember.
Would you share, with your role as an early board member, the year that you started and some of your role with that? It'd be great to have
How
as
did
part
you
of the
become-
collection.
How did you become?
Become
a board
involved
member?
with the museum.
How to become
A board member.
with a museum?
Mhm.
Oh, we were traveling in an RV. After we had a couple of boats, we decided that we were getting too old to operate the boat. I mean, it wasn't hard to operate, but docking and jumping off and all that sort of thing was difficult. So we went into RV and we RV'd for 7 years, drove all over the United States in our RV. And went back and forth across the country probably 3 or 4 times. Down to Mazatlan, Mexico, as far north as Labrador. And we went to Alaska. So we went all over in this motorhome. One day when we were driving along, we got a call from Peggy Murata,
Yes.
who was a member of the board. And she said, Jack, we need some board members. Would you be agree to serve on the board? I said, well, I'd consider it, but I want to know a little bit more about it. And so Sharon sent me all the material about the bylaws and the directors and liability insurance and all that sort of thing. And so I agreed to serve. And the next thing I know, Peggy called me again and said, well, you've been elected vice president. Well, I think our vice president should be young enough to be able to go on and serve as president, and I didn't feel that I felt we needed younger people to do that. So I resigned from being a vice president, but I've been on the board ever since. But it was kind of interesting that I became an officer and director while I was out of town.
And the museum itself has moved, so we're now in the cottage, but you recall its first location and then its movement here. So would you share a little bit about its role in its expansion phase right now with the new storefront? Would you comment about its growth?
You know, the great thing about this location is not so much as this building, which is fairly small, although they've done a good job of putting up the displays. There's not much room for artifacts like bicycles and so on. But the patio is the thing that makes this place so useful, because we have programs there, and they're always a sellout. We have not that we sell tickets, there's no charge for them, but there's no seats left by the time this starts. And we've had a number of those quite successful programs. The cottage came on the market, and we felt that would give us a much better exposure on Marine Avenue. And consequently, with kind of fear and trepidation about the costs, we committed to rent the cottage. And we still are trying to get it open, of course. It has been pretty well decorated with exhibits, but it's been a good addition, and has given us that exposure.
Absolutely.
Which makes it more interesting.
Well, we're thankful for all your years of service to the museum and the memories that you've shared with us today. So thank you for being such an active role in hosting something like this so we can participate in these kind of programs with you. So appreciate your time, and this concludes the portion of the interview process.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.